I woke up this morning, you were on my mind, and you were on my mind. I got love, I got worries, I got blues to cry. So I went to the corner just to ease my pain, just to ease my pain. I got love, I got worries, I came home again. But I woke up this morning, so this morning, we have lesson 45 of the workbook of A Course in Miracles. God is the mind with which I think. And there's something incredibly personal about this lesson that no one's really going to be able to speak to you of. Because as he says, nothing that you think are your real thoughts resemble your real thoughts in any respect. Nothing that you think you see bears any resemblance to what vision will show you. So it's sort of useless to go to somebody else to try to find out what your real thoughts are, because nothing they say from what they think is going to resemble what your real thoughts are or what their real thoughts are. And nothing that anybody can talk to you about that they see is going to bear any resemblance to what vision will actually show you and how you actually achieve vision. So this is an incredibly personal lesson. But it holds the key to what your real thoughts are. God is the mind with which I think. Today's idea holds the key to what your real thoughts are. They are nothing that you think, just as nothing that you think you see is related to vision in any way. There is no relationship between what is real and what you think is real. Okay? It's a good thing to remember. There is no relationship between what is real and what you think is real. Because, and I'll give you a simple explanation, everything you think is based on the past. Even what you think about the future is based on the past. Everything you think is based on the world that you think you are in as you're thinking it. And you can't get out of that box by looking at the thoughts that you think, or the world that you think you see. This is going to tell you that there's everything still in your mind, mostly because there's no place for anything else to go. But there's a way in which you have to sink below, which is an interesting idea in this lesson. You have to sink below all that in order to see how high you're really attempting to rise up within your own mind. That's sort of interesting. If we sort of looked at it, and there's a way in which Jesus does talk about this in the course early on to Helen, he talks about his, in a sense, map of the human psyche and consciousness, which is basically what the dream is, where it's a dream of being of consciousness, the reflective capacity of the mind. When he talks about being miracle-minded, when he talks about revelation and miracles, what he says is revelation comes from above, and miracles come from below, where your real thoughts are. And in the middle, what we call consciousness is the domain of the ego, is therefore, the domain of separation. And in a particular way, the idea of the split in our mind is represented by what consciousness, the domain of the ego. So what this lesson is actually attempting to do is to allow you, in your own experience, to go below into where you are, yourself is, your miracle mind is, and so in order to rise above the experience of being in the domain of the ego or consciousness and unite the self that you've hidden deep down below to the reality from which you've hidden it, which is high above. Um, if that's understandable, I'm not really sure. Think of it as a balloon, if you would. Consciousness is sort of a balloon. It's a membrane of separation that separates your God mind from your godly self, which is below. And as the balloon bursts, they reunite, and you experience the oneness that you already are in the kingdom of heaven. But let's get back to the lesson, because not even my thoughts are going to be able to show you your real thoughts, because they bear no resemblance. They bear no resemblance whatsoever to anything we think think or think we see. You think with the mind of God. Therefore, you share your thoughts with him as he shares his with you. They are the same because they are thought by the same mind. Now, this is a great line. To share is to make alike or to make one. So throughout the course, the author and throughout the lessons, those who are in charge of the plan for atonement and made the plan and came on devised these lessons, they use words that we traditionally use in our own language, but they use words in a way in which the words and the action implied by the words can begin to express the alignment that takes place and how it takes place with you in your realignment with the mind of God. So when Jesus in the Course uses the word share, this is what he's talking about. To share is to make alike or to make one. So that's a new definition or a new way of understanding what sharing actually does and what sharing actually is. And throughout the Course, you'll find that there are a number of words that he uses that if you attempt to apply traditional meanings to those words, you will miss and yet think you do understand what this Course is speaking to and from where it is speaking. So remember, when you come across some of these new ways to define words, some of these new uses of the words, you might want to make special note of them and keep them in mind, because you're going to come across them quite often. And I shall assure you, because this happened with me when I first began to use the Course with the word forgiveness. I was reading the course, and all of a sudden, I came to a particular section, and he was using the word forgiveness, and I realized, if my understanding of what forgiveness is the way he's using in this book, then this book is entirely wrong. And I come to know, based on my experience with Jesus and in the revelation and awakening that took place in me, that I was always wrong in regard to my concepts. And Jesus, the rock of salvation, is always right in regard to how and what how I can come to know and what I can come to know based on letting him be that rock. So lo and behold, and I don't know how it happened, I was guided just to look in the back of the book for the clarification of terms. That's what was in the back of the book at the time, before we had done the Sparkly. And there was a definition of forgiveness, and immediately upon reading the definition of forgiveness, I recognized how wrong I was in how I was thinking and what I was thinking forgiveness was. And when I came to understand what Jesus meant by forgiveness, the entire course fell into place, and I could see it was seamless and there was nothing inconsistent. There was nothing out of alignment, and it became understandable. Now, one of the reasons we changed the clarification of terms to use of terms and put them at the beginning of the book is because of that experience and the guidance that we received. There are ways in which Jesus uses terms within the book that are not traditional, and yet when understood as he uses them, makes all the difference, and allows understanding the course and recognizing the meaning behind words to be much easier. In fact, completely and totally whole and perfect and easy. Yes, and then the clarification, of course, comes within us when we take it to the Holy Spirit. So that's one of the reasons why we put the use of terms at the beginning of the book, because understanding the way Jesus uses his words, rather than thinking that we already know, is the basis of how our mind is changed so as to be able to come to do something like see what our thoughts are, to recognize our true thoughts, the thoughts that we think with the mind of God, rather than the thoughts that we think as bearing any resemblance or relationship to the thoughts that we think when our mind is one with God, when we share that one mind. When God created us, we were made alike. We were created in his image and similitude and alike to him and one with him. Nor do the thoughts you think with the mind of God leave you, because thoughts do not leave their source. Therefore, your thoughts are in the mind of God as you are. They are in your mind as well, where he is. As you are part of his mind, so are you part of his thoughts. And if there's a way, if there's phrases in which you can recognize the Jesus of 2,000 years ago in the Bible and the Jesus of 2,000 years ago, let's say in the Gospel of Thomas, this is a very particular phrase that to many of you, you'll recognize instantly. When you look back on some of the things that he said to his apostles in the Bible and some of what was in the Gospel of Thomas, this is a particular phraseology. That is Jesus' attempt to allow us to see the holiness of our own mind based on the holiness of the mind which created us and holds us ever still, eternally and infinitely in the love that he is. Therefore, your thoughts are in the mind of God as you are. They are in your mind as well, where he is. As you are part of his mind, so are your thoughts part of his thoughts. Where then are your real thoughts? Today we'll attempt to reach them. We'll have to look for them in your mind, because that is where they are. Outside of you there is nothing, and do not depreciate the power of your mind by thinking there is something outside of it. Your mind is whole and perfect, and part of the whole perfect mind of your creator, who is love. So therefore, so are you. And there's no place else for thoughts to go. Thoughts that we do not think with the mind of God are the ones that seem to get projected outward onto the membrane of separation or consciousness. And you can feel in your own membrane of separation, your physical experience, the impinging of the God mind attempting to reach the true self that is below, the God mind above, attempting to reach the true self below. And as the true self attempts to reach out to reestablish its communication with God, and the God, which is the mind which you think, attempts to reach down to reconnect with his only beloved son, you experience that as discomfort in your body and go running to attempt till you go to the corner to try to ease your pain until you decide to go home again, as the We Five sung back in the early 60s. Today we'll attempt to reach them. We will have to look for them in your mind because that's where they are. They must still be there because they cannot have left. What is thought by the mind of God is eternal, being part of creation. Which is an interesting line again down here. We will attempt to leave the unreal and seek for the real. We will deny the world in favor of truth. We will not let the thoughts of the world hold us back. And we will not let the beliefs of the world tell us that what God would have us do is impossible. Now, here's something very important that we need to remember. Instead, we will try to recognize that only what God would have us do is possible. We'll also try to understand that only what God would have us do is what we want to do. And we will also try to remember that we cannot fail in doing what he would have us do. There is every reason to feel confident that you will succeed today. It is the will of God. Now, give yourself a break and don't judge yourself by the progress that you're making, that you think you're making, because as we're going to see, we read, what you think bears no resemblance to what's actually happening. What you think, and the way in which you think it bears no resemblance to what's actually taking place in you and what's actually true in you. And the world around you that attempts to validate your thinking by giving you thought form pictorial essays of your own thinking and the misery and suffering and the troubles that are on your mind. Don't let that hold you back, nor don't let them allow you to think that just because the feelings that you're experiencing, perhaps frustration and desperation, because you don't think this is accomplishable and you're not having the experience you would want to have, that's just all the ego talking to you, attempting and to disparage you from this practice based on its need for you to think constantly about it and its world rather than to recognize that it has no reality and bears no resemblance to what it is you truly think with God, nor where you're actually thinking it from. Try to go past all the unreal thoughts that cover the truth in your mind and reach to the eternal. And you might need some help with that, and this is what this book is designed to give you, the help that you need, both in the elder brother Jesus, who has accomplished this as the Christ, because when you share the Christ mind, you are utilizing the mind of Jesus, who's already achieved his own recognition of wholeness and perfection and salvation, which is why he is the rock of salvation. And remember, God has given us this thing called the Holy Spirit, which cannot leave his mind, nor can it leave your mind, because it is a thought that God has thought and a thought that he has placed in your mind. Where your thoughts fail, his thoughts are already successful. Allow your thinking to fail. Don't think that the thoughts you think can help you in any way. Recognize they bear no resemblance to your true thoughts and simply pass them by. My real thoughts are in my mind. I would like to find them. And because your power is the power of your own mind, and that power is one with the power of God mind, you begin to allow a new order of thinking and a new order to be, in a sense, imposed upon the old order. And the old order is going to be imposed upon and present the imposition. Pay it no mind. Deny the world. My real thoughts are in my mind. I would like to find them, and find them indeed.